Hello, I'm Rusty Williams of UTC. As many of you know, I've been around UTC for a long time. First as a utility member, later as a board officer, then as an associate member, and now as the CEO. When I think back, my first regional conference that I attended was in March of 1985, and it was in Tampa, Florida. And my first annual conference was in June of 1986 in Kansas City. That's 40 years of UTC experience. Now, you may not have been around UTC for 40 years, but you should know with your involvement that UTC as an association continues to evolve just as the utility industry evolves. Well, on today's edition of the UTC Intersection Podcast, we'll be talking with two people who've been involved with UTC for many years, and both of them have served as the chair of the board. Our guests are Ken Campbell, who is retired from AEP, and he served as the board chair from 2004 to 2005. And also with us is Dewey Day. He's currently working at PG&E in California, and he served as the board chair in 2022 to 2023. We'll be talking to these two gentlemen to see how UTC has supported their companies, this industry, and how it continues to evolve to meet the needs of its members. Ken, Dewey, I've had the pleasure to work alongside with you for several years, and it's great to have you with me today here on this episode of the Intersection Podcast. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Rusty. Good seeing you. Also, Dewey, good working with you. We've known each other for several years, and I really appreciate and honored to be on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks, Rusty. It's a pleasure talking with you and Ken about UTC's history and evolution.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about UTC as we go through the next few minutes, but let's talk about you all. You know, a little bit about your careers and a little bit about what you're doing these days. Ken, you've been retired for a little while, or retired from AEP, but tell us a little bit about your career, what you did at AEP, and what you're up to these days.
Sure, Rusty. Thank you very much. I've got a few notes here. I'll try to stick to the script somewhat. Sometimes I sort of travel off of that, especially since we have a friendly conversation here about UTC, and I'm always glad to talk about UTC. I had been at AEP for 37 years, and when I first became an AEP employee, I worked in protection and control under electrical checkout at our Donald C. Cook nuclear plant in Richmond, Michigan. And after a few years, I wanted to get into telecom, and then eventually transferred to Fort Wayne, Indiana as a telecom engineer. As the years went on, then I became a supervising engineer, and eventually became a manager of telecom. And that was for the operating area in Indiana and Southwest Michigan, with about 30 people in my group at the time. After a few company reorganizations, I eventually held the title of Manager of Business Development and Joint Use. That was sort of late in the career, probably in the last 5 years of my career at AEP. I could even sell you a large power transformer or a substation construction contract if you like at that time. I did retire from AEP. It's been about 13 years ago, and I'm still active as I can be, promoting UTC and aiding Region 4 and the other regions as I can. If I'm a benefit, I'll try to volunteer and help. I'll stay out of the way if I can't help. I do some consulting as a Highlander Associates, and I support Product Source International. That's PSI with some marketing endeavors, and I'm always in the exhibit hall for PSI.
Yep.
And I always participate in the world famous cigar party that occurs at every national event.
Yep.
And in conclusion, that I'm on the board as a UTC Leadership Advisory Committee member. So that's my current position with UTC. I've always enjoyed it, and I've always looked for an opportunity to help when I can.
Yeah, well, that's great. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I know you stay involved with PSI. You mentioned them, Mr. Haig. You know, you guys work together, so it's always great to see you there. Dewey, you're still active. You're still running the show there in the Bay Area. So tell us a little bit about what you've done up to this point and what you actually have responsibility for at PG&E.
Yeah, so a little bit of background. I started out as a telecom engineer in Fresno in the Central Valley, California, doing projects, building telecom assets, SCADA radios, microwave paths, relays at substations, that sort of thing. As a career evolved, I evolved into a system engineer, which was kind of the larger scale projects where I got to do, like 17 hot microwave replacements and that sort of thing. Had a pretty good stint doing that sort of work in the transport arena. It was really all forms of transport technologies. And then a couple of years ago, I got promoted to the director of strategic planning for PG&E's communications network. So I have a group of 10 architects that work for me. We prepare the 3 to 10 year plans for the PG&E's comm equipment replacement across our entire 70,000 square foot or square mile. Square foot, that wouldn't be very big. Service territory. We write up the job estimates for the Public Utilities Commission to get those approved so that we can launch the projects as we get the budget allocations through our CPUC processes. The technologies that we support is everything from power systems for generators, DC plants and batteries, transport networks for fiber, microwave, satellite, IP networks for routing, switching, and management tools, OT networks for SCADA radios, private LTE, cellular SCADA, that sort of thing. And last but not least, audio, video, and telephony. So as my old buddy used to say, we do everything from DC to daylight.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, the one thing I did just listening to you guys talk and knowing my own career, for all three of us, our career paths weren't a straight line. All right, I mean, it wasn't like we had a career path laid out. We were going to go do this, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do that. While we may have had some aspirations, we didn't even start in the telecom space. They sounded like, right, and so it's interesting to see that what kind of paths people take and the benefits of having different experiences. I talk about me starting as a distribution engineer. That wasn't my path that I had written out, but looking back at it, it was a good experience because you learn the business. You learn why power companies exist. All right, you got to keep the lights on and the meter spinning, and you take the calls from customers when the trees fall or whatever. So I think that's always good. And I know you guys have had opportunities to talk to people through the years, and so that's getting all those experiences. I think is a good thing for us.
Rusty, I think you get some credibility, especially if we worked on the T&D side somewhat. Of course, our first love, I think, had been telecom for me anyway. I used to say that we used to do our hobby and get paid for it. But if you come from T&D in some way, shape, or form, I think people tend to listen to you more within the company. I think that's beneficial.
Yeah, it always helps to be able to talk the language.
Yeah.
And just to, even in the comm space, to be able to say, yeah, I did that one time, or I experienced that one time. I think that does give you some credibility for sure. So,
actually, interesting. Go ahead, Dewey. When I graduated from college, I graduated with a power emphasis and a communications emphasis from Fresno State. And what I thought was it was going to give me some form of, career diversity, because I had, both of these things that were in my study history. And what I actually think it did is I think it wrote me right into this job because I'm a comm guy that knows how to talk to power people.
Right.
That helps.
Yeah. You can talk both languages. Yeah, that's a great thing. All right. Well, let's kind of steer the conversation a little bit back toward UTC. And let's start with how you two gentlemen got involved with UTC to start with. Let's try that. So, Dewey, I'm gonna start with you this time. Tell me a little bit about how you found out about UTC and kind of the early stages of how you got involved.
Well, for fear of dating myself,
You can't date yourself past me, and Ken, so don't worry about that.
No, don't bring that up, okay?
yeah. So my first UTC was back in Carnell and I were trying to figure it out. It was 1990 something. It's been a minute. Late 90s. Let's just go with that.
So where was it? Where was it? Where was the meeting?
I think it was Vegas, and I think it was 98, but we're right around there.
Gotcha.
And basically, I had a boss, the guy that hired me on, that wanted to, foster learning, and he felt that one of the great ways to learn was to go to conferences and get some education out of the vendors at these conference events and see what the entire like floor of vendors and technology partners and all that stuff looks like. So I went to a few different conferences, and after going to a couple of different conferences, I really got to the spot where I liked the vibe and the feel of the UTC conference, and started going to those fairly regularly. When I took the system engineer job that I described a little while ago, my boss at the time encouraged me to participate in the public policy division because there's a lot of spectrum related issues that happen through there that we wanted to be aware of. So I was on the public policy division for several years as just an attendee. And then when Kathy Nelson bumped up to be on the executive committee and freed up her spot as chair of the public policy division, she reached out to me to see if I would be interested in chairing the public policy division. Something that my boss supported, again, as he encouraged me to seek those sorts of knowledge channels. And then had a fairly long stint as public policy chair as it evolved through the pandemic period. Mm-hmm. I served a few more years than the term was supposed to be. And then, coming out of the pandemic, I was kind of role-less at UTC, but then there was an unexpected resignation of a vice chair that caused a little bit of a shuffle between on the executive committee. So the secretary treasurer at the time bumped up to fill the vice chair role for half of the term. And then I got contacted to say, hey, would you like to be on the executive committee, which started the 4-year roll through the different roles of secretary treasurer, vice chair, chair, immediate past chair, and all those wonderful responsibilities.
Okay.
As you said, concluded about 2023.
Yeah. So it was a good thing your supervisor manager at the time encouraged you and saw the value in participating in something like UTC and you going, right?
Yeah, and like also encouraged, going to different conferences. I don't want to list some of the other conferences on here, but after I'd been to a few of them, it was like, well, which one resonates best with you, and how you can best participate. Because some conferences, I'm not a big fan of the conferences that are 15, 20,000 people, and you got to walk 3 miles and you wear a pair of tennis shoes at the show, right? There's too much stuff to weed through to get to the vendors you really want. And for where we're at as a communications entity within a utility, the vendor pool is and the contractor pool and all that sort of thing is really tailored to exactly what we need to be.
Right. Yeah, that is true. So Ken, at AEP, were there a lot of people involved with UTC when you got involved? I mean, tell me a little bit about how you got involved.
Yes, AEP had been involved with UTC for many years. We've had, I wouldn't say a plethora of chairmen that came from AEP. There's been, 3 or 4?
3, I think. Yeah, if I remember right.
Of course, David Trigo had been one in the past. Of course, myself, then it was Jason Griffith.
Jason Griffith, yeah.
So AEP had always been involved. Dave Trigo encouraged me to get involved, and I had no idea what it was about back in those days. But I can recall it was in the early 80s that I attended a Region 4 meeting in South Bend, Indiana. So it's been easily 40 years for me being attached to UTC and helping with all the good things that UTC does. I think my first national meeting was in Boston, and I didn't look back to see what year that was.
It was not, if it was in the 80s, it was in 1988.
Okay, there you go. That's my first national.
Don't ask me how I remember that, but I do remember it.
Okay. All right. Well, as we all get older, we have some things that do slip our mind. I'm faced with that almost every day. Just ask my wife. So
No, we won't do that.
Okay. But since my initial meeting in Region 4 in South Bend, Indiana, that met a lot of good people there. It was great talking to them about common technical problems. It was great to see the networking going on. That impressed me most of all. People being friendly, helping each other out. It was a good thing. And I've made friends at those region meetings and the national meetings for all these years, and people that I still am good friends with, and we have those things in common, UTC and solving technical network and system problems, equipment problems, etc. I did get involved with several Region 4 UTC projects. I was more than happy to do that. Some good stuff. I learned a lot. Of course, it benefited AEP being a member of UTC, for one thing, getting updates on the industry, the information flow that came from Congress. We had people that visited the Hill, et cetera, back in those days. And it was impressive to me. So I made my mind up, I'm going to stick with it. And as time went by, I did become like Secretary Treasurer, Vice Chair, eventually the Region Chair a couple of times in Region 4, which it gave me a chance to attend the national board meetings. And that was initially back in the days where we went to Old Town in Alexandria, Virginia.
Oh, yeah. I remember one or two of those. Yeah.
At the Holiday Inn there. Mm-hmm. I like that place. I sort of missed that. And so from those days on, that I found that benefit to AEP as well as myself. And like that got me involved with more national activities back in those days.
So let me ask you about that, Ken. I mean, what attracted you? Or, why bother? Get in leadership role at UTC, right? We all have day jobs, and if you increase in responsibility, there's some time and effort that comes along with that. What made you want to put up with that extra time and effort to be part of the leadership at UTC?
Well, it was from my good experiences at the region level. And I could see the same excitement and involvement at the national level. And particularly, in those days, participating in the national board meetings, the energy was there, and everybody had such a high level of and desire of wanting to help each other. It was not a competitive atmosphere, I must say. It was utilities helping utilities. Particularly in the telecom arena that we were in, and if you had issues or problems with any particular systems or equipment, you had somebody to go talk to, and there was genuine interest by others to do good things for ourselves as well as trying to improve our industry, and which I still really believe that. We do provide a great service to our market. We still promote that advocacy, public policy, the technical education, and the networking. That it's at the core of why I felt that I should stay involved and help as much as I could.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of times the fact that the members don't compete and they're willing to collaborate. I remember, and it still happens today, but in the past in Region 3, which is where we were, we actually set aside time in the 2-day agenda to talk about things that didn't go right, or I'm having this problem. Does anybody have you experienced the same thing, or those sorts of things. And so people were willing to share and learn from each other, which I think is invaluable.
Sure.
for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, Dewey. I know when we talk about leadership positions, one thing I constantly talk to the staff about is, hey, don't forget these guys are volunteers. These ladies are, they have a real job somewhere else. But, considering all of that, what is it about being in that kind of a leadership role that attracted you to UTC or in those kind of positions at UTC?
I think it's really when you get involved and you stay involved, you develop relationships with staff in the positions, and having those relationships. Like I talked about, Kathy recruiting me earlier for the PPD role. Right, I knew her through Public Policy Division for many years. I'd been out to Great River Energy and met with her boss and some folks about different spectrum initiatives. And getting in a spot where you have that camaraderie with the staffers and your fellow utility peers, I think really encourages you to lean in and do more. And when you really see, like what you were just talking about, the staff does the yeoman's work of what needs to happen. Right, when you're chair of the Public Policy Division, Brett Kilborn, Charlotte Arts back in the day were the ones that were, doing all the heavy lifting, right? I was chairing a meeting. I was, facilitating a call. I was, working with them on notes, but they did all the real big work. And having that support makes it very easy to be a volunteer in these organizations. And then, as you get into the executive committee and stuff like that, I really didn't think that I was in a position where I was ready to be a executive committee member when they recruited me coming out of the pandemic. And I had some serious talks with folks that were already in the position. Greg Angst and Paul Lambert were in that role in the executive committee. And through my interactions with the Public Policy Division, they were the people who encouraged me to say, "No, you're ready. You could do this. It's I understand you don't feel right. We all feel that when we're going into a new challenge." So I think that's the thing that really kind of, once you get involved, you get to know the personalities and people you can talk to and people you can bounce ideas off of, like you were just talking about.
Right.
That's really what kind of gets you engaged and stage it keeps you engaged. Yeah.
So it's the people. It's good people trying to do good things and talking to them eyeball to eyeball. It's people that really make it go.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something that kind of gets undersold, in my opinion, is people that come in, maybe that are not in these kind of positions in their normal workday. They may not be a manager or they may be a young supervisor or whatever. But, UTC can actually provide some developmental opportunities for things like that. Your ability to make public presentations or learn how to run a business meeting or those kind of things that you can take back to your real job or your personal life. And it's a benefit that's not really, on the top of the pamphlet when they're trying to convince you, Dewey, into becoming an officer, right? But, I can think back, there's a lot of folks that, but through those years of additional responsibility, improved and got better, and they took that back to their workplace.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, Ken, when you look back, you and I have talked about how long we've been around UTC, but when you look back, 10, 20, 30 years ago, and you know your involvement today, what's different about UTC, that from 20, 30 years ago for what was happening today? Do you see it being that much different?
Well, I think our purpose and our industry goals have not changed that much. I think that what has changed is within UTC, because the changes were needed because of changes of technology and the new systems that we have to work with nowadays. UTC still provides the advocacy, the public policy information, the training, the networking, and those are probably the most noble goals that we have. But the changes in technologies and networks, we have to keep up with those things. And those internal goals and objectives, I think we have to change those to benefit the membership and to do our industry the good that we're trying to do. And I think that we have proof of that. And we've, well, of course, the pandemic was a problem. We had a dip in membership, but we're coming back strong. We've kept up with those technologies. And I know there's, of course, we used to have off-site brainstorming sessions. What do we need to do next? We had to analyze and should analyze what our market needs, thinking of utilities and the telecom networking that's become more important as time goes on. And what we're very conscious of is internally making those changes needed to benefit our membership and the members.
Yeah. So, yeah, technology does change. The world changes. We have to adapt. But, Dewey, let me ask you this question. I was asked Ken what has changed. When you look back from your involvement, what hasn't changed? What's kind of stayed the same within UTC?
Yeah, and I think we've already alluded to it. It's the camaraderie. It's the ability to share ideas. There's no intellectual property between utilities, right? We can help each other solve problems. We can talk to somebody about how we solve those problems. Vendors need to maintain intellectual property, right? They need to make sure that their microwave radio or their fiber terminal is better than the competition's, right? They need to maintain that sort of advantage, in their world. But between us utility folks, if we can say, hey, this is how I solved a SCADA radio communications problem and help point somebody in the right direction or tell them some of the things to consider how they might come up with a different solution at their utility. And have those open interactions with idea sharing is, I think, really the thing that's been 100% consistent year over year over year, even as the technology changes.
Yeah. I agree completely. I mean, that's, the mission and, in my role, having been now my current role, been a utility member and an associate member, now sitting in this seat, trying to bring all of that together of, what works for this group of people, what wouldn't work, but maintaining, what has made UTC special, different, through the years. And we're, I'm not the guy that likes to live in the past and do it the way we did it in the good old days, but there are things from the good old days that we can learn from and leverage and take it forward, right?
Some of those good old days are still good,
Yeah, well, but I have been known to say that the good old days probably wasn't really that good when we were living in them. It's just looking back at them that they seem to be. Well, and speaking of looking back, all right, we're kind of getting close to the end of our time here, but I'm going to ask you this question, Ken. I'm going to start with you. Most memorable experience or moment from your involvement through all those years at UTC?
I'll tell you what, it was during my time as a chairman, and I always appreciated that. I was so fortunate to have so much contact and camaraderie with the membership. I mean, I can't recall one incident that I could say was my most memorable moment, but it was just being able to talk to the membership eyeball to eyeball, not taking for granted, their problems and issues. And what I tried to do is always try to communicate to the membership that we're trying to help them, and we could see each other on the same level, talk problems, come up with solutions. And to me, that was my one of my greatest situations that I was so happy to experience at the UTC.
Okay, well that's be something we all experience. My most memorable moment for you is when you ended up in the emergency room in Long Beach having a heart attack. Fortunately, everything worked out, but that's just one of those things going, holy crap, where's Ken? What?
Luckily, it wasn't. It was an event. Fortunately, it wasn't a heart attack per se, but I was happy to be there when I was. Just ask Joe Lackey. He'll tell you all about it. He was there with me at the time.
Oh yeah. All right. How about you, Dewey? Memorable moment?
Well, I think from a memorable moment for me, right, when I was board chair, you talked about us being volunteers earlier, right? And as part of my tenure, I had the opportunity to have a leadership change at the president level of UTC. And then, had to bring on an interim chairman or CEO to fill in for the time, and then the eventual hiring of you, and that was all during my tenure, and that's certainly a very memorable moment. And on the lighter side, it's also great to see Vinny and Dennis and Ken and Bob walk by with cigars for the cigar party.
There you go.
Everybody looks forward to that.
and I don't want to downplay that, but I won't say something as simple as that, but that's one of those things that people look forward to at our conference. And we have a super cool place to do that in Las Vegas next year at our conference.
Oh, terrific.
We're looking forward to that. Well, all right, gentlemen, we could sit here and reminisce for forever. For a long time talking about the days gone by, but I just want to let you know before we get through that I appreciate all you've done for UTC. I have enjoyed working alongside of you, with you, all of those kind of things through the years, and look forward to continue to doing that. I know Ken, even though you're retired, you're still involved either as a past chair or as an associate member with PSI. And Dewey, I appreciate you staying involved as well. But you're helping move people like yourself are helping move the organization forward, and you're leaving a legacy, all right? And for people coming after you to follow. So I just want to say it publicly. I appreciate what all you have done, and look forward to continuing to working with you guys as we go forward.
Thank you, Rusty. Appreciate it very much. Always here to help.
Yeah, thanks, Rusty. Always a pleasure talking with you and Ken, and we're here to help you push to UTC's 100th anniversary.
That's it. We're looking for that 100th anniversary, the path to 100, as we call it here. Well, that'll do it for this edition of the Intersection Podcast. I appreciate you all listening, being a part of it. Subscribe, click, like, all the things that the influencers on social media tell you to do. And we'll see you down the road on the next edition of the Intersection Podcast.